Okay, programmers, welcome to the online lesson. We are going to finish up this slot machine, make it, what do we have left to do? We have to add the bank into this. So like when you win, how much money do you get? We have to have a system that, that's going to keep you from playing if you don't have any money, and that will reduce the amount of money you have each time you play. And then finally, we are going to, we'll need some message center that will tell you, whether you won, whether you got the jackpot, whether you need to add money, or whether you lost. And then we can add sounds after that. And then the last thing we'll do is look at adding a GUI to this, a graphical user interface, to make it look like a slot machine. And I have a bunch of sample files on the website that you can use, but I'd love it if you found your own content or made your own content for the homework assignment. All right, so let's dive right in. First thing we need to do, so this is the slot machine that we ended up with last week. If you weren't here last week, or your slot machine has problems, you can just download what we had from the website. It's there, so you under week 6, so you can download that, and this is what you'll have. So the first thing we need to do, I noticed when I first started prepping for this class that this patch, it works, but there's something that doesn't quite work right off the bat correctly. If I just say new game, go, it'll go, but it just goes, you'll win every time, and for mine it gives me 3 9s every time. So there's a 9, there's a 9, and there's a 9. And this did flash down here, so all the same win was working, but we didn't get any randomness, and that's because these random objects here that add to the logic operators here that open and close the gates that allow the counters to count, that make the wheels turn, that never got triggered. So these are all triggered by this button here, but this button was never attached to the new game. So like that fixes it. Now when you click this, it populates these with random numbers, and now we should get a random value and not win every single time with 999. So let's see if I win. Probably won't. 3, 5, 2. So I didn't win. None of those lit up. So that's good. All right, cool. The next thing, I believe all 6s didn't work quite right. I don't know why we did all 6s. Every other time I've always done the jackpot is all 7s. I believe it was a class suggestion. You guys wanted to do all 6s. So I guess you have a satanic slot machine. But yeah, so I was testing that in my prep. So I was to test this. What we can do is set the wheels to whatever we want to test for. So 6, 6, 6, and then over here this 0 triggers everything, is like the same as this last gate starting. So it triggers everything to be calculated. And you notice it didn't flash this first time. If I trigger it again, it will flash, but that first time it didn't trigger. And I figured out what that was, and that was simply this math object right here is not getting populated correctly. The calculation is not getting triggered when it needs to, because this comes in. See how this comes in before this one? The value coming out of this plus object comes in after this equals 6. So what happens is it triggers the calculation before the value has come into the other inlet. So I'm just switching these around. So now we have this coming in the first inlet, this coming in the second inlet, and that should fix it. Let's try it now. So now To make sure that this is working, I need to set it to something that's not a win condition first. So 166. Okay, whoop, and see it's still triggered. So something's wrong here. 162. We'll try that. Doesn't trigger, and I keep hitting this. It's still not triggering. Okay, great. Now I go to 666. 666. Trigger. Doesn't trigger. So did I have it right and I forgot? Let's see. Maybe it's supposed to be this way. Switch those like that. Yeah, that's the way it was supposed to be. I guess it wasn't like that before. And this is the way it needs to be. All right, let's try it again. So we want to do a non-winning condition first, just to make sure that we don't have leftover math that is making it seem like we're winning. So here's a non-winning condition. Nothing wins. That's great. Now we go to 666. 666 and try it. Boom. All win. All the same win lights up and all 6 win. It would do that because all 6s are all the same. So both of those light up. So that's the way it should operate. There was one other little bug. It's not a huge bug, and it's just in this testing phase. See how this coming out of this change is going to this cell 0 and to this clock stop, but this 0 is not going to the clock stop. We want to actually send it to the clock stop as well. Doesn't really matter because this is just for testing, but now it'll be effectively simulating everything that's coming out of this change object that's coming into these objects here. So this is what we can use to trigger. All right. So that's all working the way it should. So that's basically what we had last week minus the bugs. Now I fixed a couple bugs. This is not a button we need. It's not attached to anything. We can get rid of that. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is I want to clear up some screen real estate. And we can do that by encapsulating these win conditions into a subpatch, right? We already have there's a broken connection here using sends and receives. So we have send wheel 1, 2, and 3, and then we're receiving wheel 1, 2, and 3 on all these different places here for our win condition analysis. So we don't have to worry about breaking connections. We already have that done. All we need to do is put this into a subpatch. So the easiest way to do that is to simply highlight everything that you want to put into a subpatch, and then do the shortcut Shift Command E for encapsulate. Encapsulate. Shift Command E. So then it'll give you this subpatch, a P followed by, and then you should put something in. So we're going to call this win conditions. Win conditions. Okay. All your stuff is still there. It's inside the subpatch. If I double click on the subpatch, either locking the patcher first and then double clicking on it, or command clicking on it if the patcher is unlocked, there's all the things. They're still there. And because we use sends and receives, these still are getting all the data that they need from these sends here. All right. We won't be able to see anything though, because nothing, unless we have this subpatch open, we won't be able to see these things light up. But that's all right, because we're actually going to assign point values to these different win conditions and then send the point values out of this subpatch. So first, in order to get things out of this subpatch, we could either use a send or we could use inlets and outlets. Let's just use an outlet because it's easy. So here we have an outlet. We only need the one outlet because all we're going to send out of this patch is what the score is that they got from that last round. If they didn't win, the score will be 0. If they did win, it'll be one of a couple different values based on how difficult it is to get the win condition that they won, right? All right, we don't need these little extra messages here. These were just for probing and looking what was coming out of these objects. They're not attached to anything, so we can get rid of them. All right, so first thing we want to do is we can assign point values to these ascending and descending wins. These are probably the least valuable win conditions because they're the easiest to attain. There are the most number of combinations that equal that do ascending. There are more ascending combinations than there are all three of the same, right? It's easier to get these than it is to get these. So we give them a less point value. I'm going to stick to some standardized point values, and what I'm going to do is do 50 points for this, for either descending or ascending, because I believe they're identically likely to happen. And then 100 for all the same, and then 500 if they're all sixes. If you were going to actually do this as a real Vegas slot machine, well, first of all, you wouldn't be using max. But second of all, you would probably do some analysis of actually how likely are these and do the actual math to figure it out. And then you figure out what the payout is based on that, so that you always have some margin of profit at the end of the day. That's the way Vegas does it. So machines that have more wins pay out less. That's basically the way it works. Okay, so we just need to have these point values. So we're going to do 50 points for ascending and descending. So let's have message 50. And so if this button lights up, that means you got 50 points. So we can just attach it to that. Whoops. Oh no, where did it go? There it is. Okay. We can just attach it to that message. All right. But if you don't win, what we're going to do is we're going to add these four things together with an expression object. So we're going to either be in the first position, we're going to be either adding 50 or adding 0, right? So if you don't win, we want a 0 to go in that place. So we need a message that's a 0. Now coming out of this select object, the way a select works is if it selects what you put in the object or what you put in the right inlet, if in this case 2, if a 2 comes into it, it sends a bang out this outlet. Bang if input matches 2. But a bang doesn't come out the other outlet. It's actually whatever the number is that came in. So we don't want that number. We actually wanted a bang. So we're just going to put a button here. Or actually, you know what? We don't even need this message 0. We can use a trigger. Trigger 0, which is the same as having a button and a message 0. Right? So what a trigger does is it doesn't care what comes into it. See, it says message to be fanned to multiple outputs. Yeah. Well, in this case, it doesn't care what's coming out of it, because I say no matter what's coming into it, trigger a 0. So a 0 is always going to come out. All right. So we need to do this to each one of these. So let's do a 50 points over here now, 50, and another T0. Let's just duplicate this one. Bring it up. Whoops. Bring it over. We can move the ascending comment up. All right. Patch that in. Let's add, we're going to have the same thing over here. They're going to have different point values over here, but when you lose, obviously, it's always going to be 0. And so one more over here. Trigger 0. There we go. Okay. We need to attach that up. So now make sure that these buttons are attached to the point values, which is 50, 50, let's say 100 here. And 500 here, but actually we want it to be 500 when you get all 6s, but as we saw earlier, when you have all 6s, that is the same as all the same and all 6s, so we can say 400 here, and when we add it together, 400 and 100 will equal 500. Does that make sense? Great. Don't know why I'm asking questions. It's not like I can hear you if you have any. All right, so now we're going to use an expression object. We could use a bunch of nested plus objects, but it would just be messy. And it's easier sometimes, a lot of times, if you're going to have multiple inputs, to use an expression object. So EXPR. Now an expression object is going to be yellow as if it's not a valid object if you don't have a valid formula, expression in there for it to work with. So you have to put things in the correct syntax. And in this case, the syntax is $I, because we're working with integers. It would be $F if it was floats. But $I, 1 through 9, I think you can have 9 inputs. So we're only going to need 4. So I1 plus $I2 plus $I3 plus $I4. Okay, now it turns the right color because that's a valid expression. And we can attach this, the stuff coming out from the descending wind to the first inlet here. Now, make sure that you attach the 50 into the first inlet and then the T0 into the same first inlet, right? Because it's either going to be 50 or it's going to be 0. We don't want to put the 0 over here. Okay, then 50 here in the second inlet and 0 in that same inlet. Then 100 over here in the next inlet and 0 in that same inlet. And finally 400 in the last inlet and 0 in the same inlet. Now we have this ugly spaghetti mess now of wires here. When you're making things neat in your patch, sometimes it's really helpful to artificially make the objects bigger than they need to be. I can drag this wider and see when I do that how nice and neat everything becomes now. So that makes everything really easy to trace, right? All right, and now we can send the results of this out the outlet. So that's great. Let's close that. And we can test this out now. So now we have this P win conditions, and now it has an outlet. So we can attach that to an integer number box to see the point value as it comes in. All right, so let's fake a win here. Let's do a 1, 2, and a 3, and we hit this 0 here to trigger our calculation. It didn't work. Why? One, 2, 3. Let's try 3, 3, 3. 3, 3, and 3. Trigger it again. All right, it worked. Wait a second. I saw it a minute ago. All right, hold on. I just want to make sure that this is still working. I'm going to delete this and undo, which should reset everything. Now, if I send it the 3, 3, 3 that well, actually, here, let's change it to a non-win condition. 1, 6, 8. Nothing comes out. Now I'm going to send this to a 1, 2, 3. 2, 3. Boom, nothing comes out. Trigger it again, something comes out. All right, so that's a problem with things happening in the order that they need to happen in. Darn it. Oy, why? Okay. Maybe it's this. Maybe... No, because it's not a problem with 6s, so it can't be that. Okay, well, it's probably having to do with the order of things coming into this. So let's see how I could fix that by... We could do triggers. We could store values and then trigger everything. Yeah, let's do that. Okay, so there's an order of operations problem going on here. I could probably hunt it down and figure out how to fix it by moving things around or putting a trigger in the right triggers in the right area to specify order. But I'm just going to save time. I'm going to circumvent that. At least I'm going to try by doing it this way. So we're just going to store this. Whoops, not that. Store this in a what are these? The I object, right? It's the non-graphical int object, and we're going to patch these in here. So set the value without output, right? And so then these will get stored in here, So make sure you're patching those into the right inlet of this. Okay, and then, oh, make sure we're patching these back into the inlets of this. Strange. 400. Yeah, okay. All right, and now we're going to use, we need to have something actually trigger this. So let's do a send game over, or not send, or receive. Game end. And patch that into each one of these. And what we'll do, we just need to make sure that a bang comes in there at the very end when everything is done. So nothing then gets calculated until everything is done. All right, so let's see how we can do that now. All right, so it should be coming out of this clock stop. All right, let's try that. Trigger bang, bang, bang. The last thing that happens is that gets banged. So when the clock stops, this code here executes, and the last thing that happens is this bang. That sends out that wheel. So what we can do is add one more bang here. Whoops. I accidentally said BB with no space. Make sure you have a space in between everything. And oops, now things got disconnected. So wait a second here. All right, wait, I need to make sure I don't get the order wrong. All right, so the first thing that happens is it goes to that one. The second thing that happens is it goes to that. Then the last thing that happens is it goes to this. Then we can add one more. All right, so now this, we just need to move all of these over one. So the first thing that happens is that still. Second thing that happens is this. Last thing that happens is this. And then now the very last thing that happens is the game over. What did I do? Game end. Let me just copy that and paste it. Game end. And I can change this to a send now instead of a receive. Okay, so now this gets a bang at the very, very end. So this should fix that problem. Let's make sure now. To make sure, we need to make sure we have a first we have a non-winning condition. So let's do something non-winning. 4, 2, 7. Boom. 0 came out. Now let's do a 1, 2, 3. Boom. 50 came out. All right, we fixed that bug. Okay, great. Moving on. So yeah, just as I suspected, that was some sort of order of operations bug, which we fixed by storing our values in these integers, and then not outputting them for a calculation until everything is done. So we sent each of those values one at a time, and then the last thing we did, the fourth thing we did, was sent a game end value. That totally stops the, that triggers the calculation and ends the whole game. And we can use that game end, I'm sure, in another place for our sounds and so forth. All right, so next thing I wanted to do on my list was to speed up the play because it takes a long time. for these wheels to stop. They are taking 5 seconds for the first wheel, at least 5 seconds for the first wheel, and at least 10 seconds for the second, and at least 15 for the third. That's a long time. I don't think a casino would want the wheels to spin that long, because they would want the player to get more plays in an hour so they can take more of his money away. So we can reduce this. We could speed up our metro. That would make this clock calculation not work correctly. It would not represent seconds and minutes, or seconds and tenths of a second. But that doesn't really matter. We don't really need this anymore anyway, actually. But all we really need to do is reduce the amount that it's counting to, right? Because right now it's counting to at least 100, but it could be anywhere between 100 and 200. In fact, here it counted, the last time I ran it, it counted to 199. That is as high as that, that's as long as that first wheel can take. So yeah. So we're going to reduce that. We're going to, instead of having these count to 100 or giving us random 100s, we're going to make them random 50s. We're going to reduce this by half. All right, so now they're random 50s. And we can now, we don't need a plus 100 here. We can just have that pass straight through. And then we just need to be, so this first one will be anywhere between 0 and 50. The second one needs to be greater than 50, so we'll say plus 50 instead of plus 100. And the second one we can say plus 100 instead of plus 300. This should make it much faster now. It will be less than 5 seconds, 10 and 15 seconds. All right, so here we go. And it goes, and we still get the same amount of randomness unless I win. All right, I didn't win. Okay, and it said 0, so I didn't win. Great. Cool. So now we sped up the play. It takes a lot less time. So now the next thing on the list. All right, so we kind of have payout here. At least we have point values. We have our win-lose. We have to put in money still, and we actually want to have we want a bank system that actually keeps track. Right now, our payout, it'll tell us how much we won, but we don't have any way of keeping track of how much we won. So we could use a plus object like this and somehow patch this into the right inlet. And then, so every time it adds to what was there before. And you can play around with trying to do it that way, and it works, but it's not very exciting. And I found a better way of doing it, because when you play a slot machine, when you win, you watch the money roll up. You watch it increase over time, and that makes you more excited, right? And there's an object that could do that, and it's called the ink deck. It's a graphical object, so ink deck. Ink deck. As soon as I click off of this, it's going to turn into something else. It's going to turn into this thing with like triangles. I'm going to make it bigger so that you guys can see it. And I'm going to put a comment telling you what it is. It's an ink deck object. Okay, this is an ink deck. All right, ink deck. So with an ink deck, what that stands for is increase or increment decrement. So essentially increase and decrease. If you send it the word ink, INC, it will increment what is currently stored in there. So right now there's 0 in there. If I hit ink, it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Every time I hit ink, it'll go up. Okay, I don't need this to be set on floats. Let's set it to integers. It's weird that it's floats. Where do you set that? Oh well. Oh, step size 1 period. Maybe if I change this to 1 without a period, it'll be. Nope. Oh well, doesn't matter. It can be a float. We can put it into an integer box, and that'll turn it into an integer. Right? Okay. Doesn't really matter. It's just a period. All right, so what we can do is when this comes in, so say, go ahead and set a winning condition, 333, and I hit this 0 over here for testing, boom, and it says 100. I need to hit ink 100 times to make this ink go up to 100. But I want to have it hit it 100 times, not all at once, right? Because if I sent it 100 bangs in quick succession, you probably wouldn't even see it. It would still be instantaneous. So we're going to need to like feed those bangs by a metro. So let's have a metro, Q metro 20. Actually, we don't want it to drop bangs because if it happens to drop a bang, we're going to lose $1. So we want this to actually be a true metro and not a Q metro. It's not likely in this patch that you're ever going to drop bangs. Because we're not doing anything really graphically intense, but I think this is the best practice. So we want this to be a metro. We're going to need to give it a amount of milliseconds, an interval, let's say just something like 20 milliseconds. So now this will give us bangs every 20 milliseconds. If I attach this to the ink and I turn it on, you see it starts counting up over time. It starts rolling up. That's what we want it to do. Okay, so how do we do that? What we can do is we can have a counter. We have the metro, and that's going to be driving those increment messages. Let me move this over here. Okay. Then we need like a counter that we're going to use to actually make this thing stop and start. And start and stop at the right time so that it rolls up and stops at the amount that you should have won. So the counter, you can specify with counter what you want it to count to, or in arguments in the object, or you can patch them into these inlets. So right here is like sets the count maximum. That's what we want it to count to. So we're going to actually take the number coming out of the win conditions here and patch that into the sets the count maximum. But we need to do this all in the right order. So we're going to use a trigger here to specify the order of everything. All right, so coming out of this, we're going to trigger integer 0 integer. When you say integer, that will pass whatever the number coming into it is, and so the first thing that's happening is it's going to be this integer. We're going to send that to the counter maximum, so that the first thing, when the win condition comes down, it sets the counter maximum. The next thing that happens is it sends a 0, this 0, to the next inlet on the counter, which resets that counter to that number immediately. So if the last time you used this thing, the counter was counting up to 100, and it got to 100 and it stopped, the next time you use it, it will continue counting from 100. We need it to go back to 0 first. So that's what we did. Okay, let me arrange my patch cords here. Okay, then the next thing we need to do is turn on the metro. So that's why we have this I coming in here. We have the metro here. And the way this works is if this number coming out of the win conditions is anything greater than 0, that toggle will turn on. Because a toggle will display anything greater than 1 or greater than 0. It will not turn on if we didn't win, because it'll be a 0 coming out of that. So we just pass along the integer, and if you won, the metro will turn on. If you didn't win, the metro won't. Okay? Then, now we have this thing counting. We have this metro making the ink deck counting, making the ink deck increment. And now we just need a way of turning it off. And we can do that with the carry count flag on the counter here. So this third outlet is the carry count flag, maximum flag, and that's like how many times has it rolled over to its maximum number. So we can take that number, and we don't care what the number is because anytime it rolls over, we want it to stop. So we can use a trigger again, a trigger 0. So it doesn't matter what the number is coming out of this, it's going to trigger a 0 and send that 0 back to this metro, this toggle to stop the metro. I guess that looked better. Okay. Great. So this should work now. And then coming out of this is how much money we have in the bank. So let's test it out. Let's just go ahead and run a game. You probably won't win. And we can see that a 0 comes out and that nothing should increment on the ink deck. Boom, 0. The metro doesn't turn on. Nothing increments. Now let's go ahead and force a win. Set this to 333 or whatever you want to do. And click this 0 over here to force the calculation. Boom. It turns on. It starts incrementing. And then at some point, it should turn off. Why? It's not. Did I miss something? Yes, I did miss something. The counter is not counting. So the counter is not counting because it didn't get a bang here. It's supposed to get the bangs from the same metro that that's incrementing. Like this. So now it should start counting and then turn itself off. Sorry, I forgot that step. All right. So coming from this Q metro, going back up to the counter object. So those are the 3 inlets coming into this counter. Okay, I'm going to try to get some margin space down here. Why can't I scroll down? There we go. Okay, let's try this again. So, see, I ended up with a bunch of money because my ink deck was just incrementing like crazy. Okay, so we can add 100 to this. Let's force the calculation again. Bang. And it starts. And it's off. And it added 100 and it stopped. All right, let's make sure that it's actually adding the right amount. So we can, let's reset the ink deck. I believe if you just send it a number, it'll reset that to that immediately. Yeah, so if I send it a number, it goes back to 0. Now if I send it in ink, it will be 1. All right, so let's try it one more time. Trigger this calculation, and it should go, it's at 0 right now, even though this is displaying 1. It is at 0. Gosh darn it, why the heck can't I scroll down now? All right, hold on. There we go. Okay, there we go. All right, so let's try this again. I'm gonna set this to 0 so that we know what comes out of this. All right, so that's at 0. We have 333, and we're gonna trigger a win, and it counts up, and it goes to 100, and that's exactly what it should do. Let's try the ascending. 1, 2, 3, trigger. Adds 50 to it, 150. So we got a good system here. Let's try our 666. Boom. Should add 500 to it. So that'll be at 650 when it's done. Boom. All right. We can check that one off the list. Next thing we need to do is be able to add money to this bank, and then we're going to have to actually not let people play if they don't have any money. So we can't actually add a coin slot to your computer. So I'm not going to have you stuff dollar bills into your CD-ROM drive, but we can virtually simulate adding money. How about that? All right, so again, this number here sets it to that number. Actually, if you say, then I believe if you actually send it the message, oh, come on, unlock. Set 0. No, it still doesn't output it. That's weird. Why was it outputting it on my message, on my Oh, that's just for testing. Okay. Great. Okay. So yeah, getting it to reset is what we have to do actually to get it to reset. You have to say set 0 and then bang, or you can actually just say 0 and then bang, and then it will actually output the 0 that's in there. Okay, great. So now nothing's in the bank. We need to add a method of putting things in the bank. What we're gonna do is first of all we're gonna have a send and receive. So let's have a receive to bank and patch that into the ink deck. Receive to bank, patch that into the ink deck. Like so, and then, yeah, and then let's duplicate this and change it to a send. Okay. Now, in order to add money, we need to send a specific number of increments to the ink deck. So there's an object, and we can do that with bangs, right? So if we wanted to send 50 ink messages, I could get 50 bangs and bang ink 50 times. There's an object that does that gives you a specific number of bangs in rapid succession, and it's called, comically, the Uzi object. So Uzi, what comes in the right inlet is how many bangs you want to shoot. So how many bullets you want to put in this gun. And then this starts an integer, or a bang will start it going. So that's like your trigger of your gun. And then coming out of this, it just says, watch out, because that's the business end of this Uzi. All the bangs come out there. And then when it's done banging, there's a carry count bang coming out of that. We don't need that. And there's an index. We don't need that. So what we do need is to set this. So this would be how much money we're going to set. So we can use an integer here and patch that in there. And then we need a button here. And this will, let's say this is going to be like commit. Okay. And then you can send that to an ink message. And then send that to the bank. And make sure your receive to bank is connected over here. Right? Okay, so now there's 0 in there. I can now add 50 by saying 50 commit, and it sends 50 inks. But it sends it so fast you don't even see it. That's why we had that whole metro system before. So we could have just used the Uzi, but then you wouldn't have seen it roll up like that, right? So now we've added $50. I can add another $100, and it adds it to it. And the cool thing about this is I don't have to worry about doing any math. I'm just sending bangs to an ink, and it keeps track of everything for me. Okay? So there we go. We got that. Check that off the list. Add money. Put in money. Here, let's just move this code up here. Whoops. There we go. Put in money. That is off the list. Okay, so now we have everything except for the system that doesn't let you play if you don't have any money, and the messaging system. So I call this next system the bank gate, right? It's going to have a gate that won't open unless you have money in the bank. So we're going to put that in between the new game button and the two different bangs that it's going to. And in fact, we're going to use a trigger there to specify an order in a specific way. Okay, so to do that, let's just go ahead and start with we're going to put this in a subpatch anyway to save real estate. So let's just start with a subpatch. So P, and you can call this bank gate. So then opens up. We're going to need an inlet and an outlet, I believe. An inlet and an outlet. So not two inlets. Outlet, not out. Outlet. I can't type. There we go. Outlet. All right. So we're going to, coming into this, the new bang is going to have so this will be coming in from the new game here into here. So a bang will be coming into this. We're going to then have that bang go to a trigger that divides it into 2 bangs in a specific order. First thing we need to do is check before we let it through. The first thing we need to do is check if you have any money. So I've divided this bang into 2 bangs. The first bang I'm going to send to check. So send bank check is what we're going to call that. So now that's going to send bank check. The second one will go to the gate. So we need a gate. And actually what we're going to do is we're going to have a gate with more than one outlet. So far we've only used, I believe, one inlet and one outlet gates. You can use gates to send things to different places. Because we're going to want to send, if you're broke, we're not going to want to just block the impulse and just nothing happens if you're broke. We're going to actually want to tell you that you're broke and to put more money in. So we need that impulse to just go somewhere else instead of just being blocked. So we can say gate 2, which is how many outlets it has, right? It says you right here in the arguments, outlets, 2. Now if I send it a 1, if I send it a 0, it'll close all the gates. If I send it a 1, it'll send things out the first gate. If I send it a 2, it'll send things out the second gate. All right, we're going to send the bang from this into the inlet. Incoming messages come in this inlet, this second inlet. Sorry, the first inlet here, the inlet on the left is for controlling the gate's position or opening and closing it. Okay. So what's going to happen is it's first going to get sent to the bank check. Then we got to have things get checked out and then send it back to here to either open or close the gate. Here's the gate, right? So we're going to need to receive bank gate, we'll call it, bank gate. So we're sending out bank check. We're receiving back bank gate. We'll build the part that actually decides that in a minute. So then all we need to do actually, so coming back from that, so what this is going to do, the bank check is going to get the current value from the ink deck. That'll send it back to the bank gate that we then say, is this greater than 0? Greater than 0. If it's greater than 0, it'll send out a 1. If it's less than 0, it'll send out a 0. We want it to actually send out a 1 or a 2. So all we have to do to that, to turn a 0 or a 1 into a 1 or a 2, is add 1, right? So plus 1. Then we patch that to the inlet for the control inlet for the gate. And so then if you have less than 0, if you don't have greater than 0, it will send the bang out this outlet of the gate. And that is going to be if you're broke. So let's send broke. If you have no money, that's where it will come. That's where the impulse will go. If you do have money, then we can go ahead and send that out the outlet. But we also need to debit the ink deck $1 for each spin. Each time you hit the button, it needs to debit. So let's set one more send, bank debit. All right, so we can send that bang out the outlet to go ahead and start everything off, but also send it over here to bank debit. All right, so we have 3 sends and 1 receive in this patch. We need to have a receive bank check, and then we're going to need to have a send bank gate, and then we're going to need to receive both broke and bank debit outside of this patch. All right, so let's start with the bank check because that's the first thing that happens. As the impulse comes in, first thing we need to do is send the bank check out. So bank check, I believe, goes to, oh, there it is. Bank check just goes to the ink deck. And because if you send a bang to the ink deck, it will output its message. So receive bank check. Did I spell it right? I hope so. Let's make sure. Bank check. I can even copy it. Is probably the better way to do this. Copy, paste it, and then send the send to a receive. Change the send to a receive. That way you always spell it right. Okay, so we just need to patch that into the ink deck. I can move it down here closer to the ink deck. Okay, then coming out of the ink deck, we need to send that back to the bank gate, right? So we need a send bank gate. I think that's what we called it. Okay. So then any money that you have will then get sent back to the bank gate to open the gate, right? Okay. So that should now work. And then we just need to, so we got the bank check, we got the send bank. Oh, bank debit. So then we need a bank debit. So receive bank debit. And that's going to be simply a deck message. So we have the ink message here. We're going to use a deck message to decrement the ink deck. And patch that into the ink deck. All right, so now every time you hit go, it should subtract 1 from your gate. So look, your bank. So let's look how much you have in there now. I have 150 in mine. If I hit new game, it works. That's great. So it got past that gate. Oh wait, we don't have that patched yet, so it would have gotten past the gate anyway. But you see here that now this got decremented. It's now to 149 instead of 150. And so now I just need to hook up this bank gate. Right. So hooking up the bank gate, I used a trigger here to set some orders of things here. So let's see. I had a trigger 1 0 bang. And the reason why, well, first, because this is what we're doing here coming out of this thing, is instead of just attaching these 3 things here to the new game, we're gonna do them one at a time and in the right order. So yeah, we can disconnect this from the button here. We're gonna put it going through the bank gate first, then coming out of the bank gate goes into this trigger. Then the first thing that happens, this bang, we're going to go to a game start send. Do I have a game start send already? I don't think I do. No, I had like a game end. I have a game end, but I don't have a game start. Okay, so let's do a game start. Game start. Okay, we're going to use that. We're not going to use that until we do sounds. That's when we're going to use that. We're going to use that to trigger the sound effects. Okay, then we have this 0, right? Before we were just banging this 0, but I just built this into the trigger, so we don't need this stuff anymore. So we can just patch this into here. This is resetting this counter back to 0. And then the last thing that happens is this 1. And what did I use that for? It went over here. Oh, it started the clock. And then also we need to patch it into here. Might as well just patch it into there to do those randoms. Okay, so this should work now. Let's go ahead and try it out. We have money in the bank, so if we hit go, it should play, and it does. Let's go ahead and take all of our money out of the bank and test whether it doesn't let us play if we have no money. All right, so to set this, we're going to go 0 bang. Now there's nothing in the bank. Now if I hit new game, nothing works. So that's working right. That's the way it should be because it's not letting us play. Okay, so we just need to receive that broke so that we can display messages now. See, broke. So if you're broke, it'll come out of here, and I can hook it up to a button for now. New game. Oh, I must have spelled it wrong, right? Let's see. Capital B. All right, sorry. Capital B. There we go. New game. Boom. All right, so I'm broke. That's what's up. All right, so now we just need to do the message center. Starting to run out of time as far as my time frame for getting on this airplane, so we may not get to the graphics part of this, but we'll get the whole thing running at least because we got it running now. All we need really is this message center. Okay, yeah. Okay, so here we go. We need a message center. So we got what we can do is actually use the value coming out of the win conditions. So this value is if it's 0, you lost, right? And if it's greater than 0, then you won. So what we can do is actually just take this value. Let's send it into a trigger integer. Because the only reason why I needed to do that is because I want to have a special condition for the jackpot. Okay? All right, so the first integer coming out of this, we just need to see, is it greater than 0? Greater than 0. Because if it's greater than 0, then you won. All right, so then we're going to select for 1. So if it's greater than 0, the 1 will come out of this, and then we will select for 1, and then this button will bang if you have a number greater than 0. If it's not, then the number will come out of here, which will be a 0. We need to change that to a bang, so let's just patch it to a button. And then we can use both of these. So this is if you won and if you didn't win, right? So we can use both of these to make a message appear in a comment box. So let's make a comment box. The shortcut is C for comment. And in order to get comments to put a new message in it, you can type it in it from your patcher, but in order for you to be able to send a message and have it be displayed in the comment, you need to say set and then what you want the message to be. So we want, the first one is if you win, so we're going to say set winner, exclamation point. And patch that in there. And if I click on this button, boom, see it says winner. Now, if you lose, we need to have another message that's encouraging you to spend your money, not calling you a loser. Instead, we're going to say, try again. So I click that, and I get try again. So now, anytime win condition greater than 0, if I go ahead and move this, see how it says winner. If I go back down to 0, try again. All right, cool. We need to have that special condition for broke. We got that right here. Saying, whoops, we want a message. Set, please add money. And patch that into the message center here. So now if you're broke, let's go ahead and make ourselves broke again. Set that back to 0 and then try to play. It says, please add money. All right, so that's working. All right, so now we need the jackpot, which is the whole reason why I had this trigger II up here. So we're gonna have a little special condition for the jackpot. And all we need to do there is select for 500, right? Because that's the point value when you get a jackpot. So sell 500. And so if that is 500, that'll come out. It'll send a bang out that outlet that we can say set jackpot. Let's do all caps. Boom. All right. So let's test that out. Let's do a winner. Let's just force wins over here. 4, 5, 6. So that's an ascending win. And it says winner. So that works. And if I say 4, 5, 7, it says try again. And if I say your guys' favorite jackpot 666, it says jackpot. So that's working. Great. Now, one thing to know here, it is both sending set winner and sending set jackpot, right? Because a jackpot is a winner, but we specified the order here, and we do this one first, so it says set winner, and then it immediately says set jackpot. It does it so fast that you don't even see it. So I just left it that way because it still works. It's just a way of displaying messages, and the message updates before it's actually printed on the screen. So there's no reason to like filter one out from the other. So that's basically the whole program. That is every piece that we wanted. We just now need to build a GUI for this. So let's look at that. So to build GUIs in Max, you do presentation mode. So that's down here, and if you don't have anything in presentation mode, everything's going to be it's going to disappear. So what we need to do is add objects that we want to appear in this screen to presentation mode, and then we can move them around. So let's do that. And again, I don't know. I think we're going to run out of time, and I'm not going to be able to go into graphics. I'll check how long we've recorded so far. How long has it been? I don't know. I don't want to mess up my screen recording. Okay. All right, so we just need to add these to presentation mode. So let's grab what we want. The new game, obviously. Each one of these numbers. So new game, we can go to arrange, add to presentation. No, options, object, add to presentation. But I like to just do the shortcut, which is Shift-Command-P. Shift-Command-P. And then when you're not highlighted on the object, you can't tell when you're highlighted on it. But if you're not highlighted, it puts a pink outline on it. Now if I go into presentation mode, you can see that, right? All right. So I can do them one at a time, or you can just select everything that you want to have added to presentation mode and then add those. So really we just need the numbers. We need the game start. We're going to need this to add money. Let's add this comment for now. We don't want any of these objects that are non-graphical, right? We only want our graphical objects in our GUI. And oh, the message center, right? And how much money you have in the bank. So we can add all of these to presentation mode. So again, it's down here, this presentation mode, this presentation mode, the message, the money stuff up here in presentation mode, and the numbers in presentation mode. The new game in presentation mode. Now go into presentation mode. All of those are where they were in your patch, but now you can rearrange them however you want. So I'm going to put it over here. Here's my message center. We're going to need our new game button, and our put in money. right? You can also add things while you're in presentation mode, and they'll automatically be in presentation mode. So I can put a thing called bank, colon, and maybe a $sign. I hit the wrong button. There we go. All right, and then, so there we go. So just arrange these in some way that makes sense to you. Let's try it out. We can do this. All right, grab everything. I'm gonna move it up into the corner. There we go. All right, new game, boom. Boom, try again. All right, it works. So that's basically the whole kit and caboodle. Let me show you a couple other things. So your homework is going to be, follow along with me, obviously. Finish this up and make it look cool, right? So here's how you can make it look cool. You can make your own messages here. They don't have to be the ones I've done. You can try customizing these like number boxes. You can change the font on everything. You can get rid of these triangles in your number boxes if you want. It's all in the inspector, okay? From the website, from the class website, under week 7, is I put a number of these PNGs, which are all symbols that you can use to represent things on the slot machine. I also put the slot machine background thing, right? So there's all these like little, you know, PNGs for that. So what we can do for this, you know what, I'm just gonna skip sounds. We're not gonna do sounds, okay? But if you want to do sounds, go ahead. But let me show you how to do this, and then I'll let you guys finish up on your own. Okay, so we can use an fpick object. We can just drag things from our Finder. Where did I put those? I put mine in Max 7. Yeah, I just put mine in my Max 7 thing. Well, I put most of them there. I didn't put the background. Hold on, let me find that background. It was called Slot Machine Background. Well, why is that not showing up? There it is. I have it in a million different places. All right. So there's that. I can add this to presentation mode. Right? Now, you'll have to arrange things. If I want this to be in the back, obviously behind everything, I need to go up here to arrange, send to back. I can rescale it. Right? So I can put these numbers on the thing. I can change the text color so that you can see this. Maybe I can put my message up here, put the new game over here by the handle. Maybe have some banking center over here. I don't know. Put in money and the commit and the button. You know, and make sure to keep these next to each other so that they still make sense what they do. And then, you know, like this. And I'd probably want to change the color of my text to make this look better. And then I'd probably want to adjust these to fit in this in these wheels better. There's another object called U-button, which gives you a transparent button. You can patch that like over this, over the handle. So I'm going to go out of presentation mode now. Here's this. This is the button. Now this is the bang on mouse up. I can patch that into that, and it's the same as if hitting the button, right? So now when this is locked, I can click on the handle, and it's the same as hitting the new game, right? Cool. So there's that. I'm going to show you one last thing, and that's how you can do these symbols. So you'll need to make sure that you put all of those files these 0 through 9 PNG in some place that you have that Max knows where it is, right? And that was done through options, file preferences, any of these directories. It'll have to be there. Okay, make sure all of them are there. Mine are in my Max 7 directory. Then you can use an fpic object and in this fpic object, you're going to want to make sure you go into the inspector and over here say embed image in patcher and scale to box auto fit. Okay, so make sure you have those patched in. If you don't have auto fit at least on there, I think you won't be able to see anything. All right, then we just need to send this the right message, which if you open the help file, you see right here, you send the word pick and then the name of the message. So we just need to send it pick, and then we're going to say $1.png because I named all of those 0 through 9.png, and then we just need an integer box here, and we probably want to force this integer box to have a minimum of 0 and a maximum of 9 so that it doesn't try to load things that don't exist. Patch that in there, and now see what that does? Now it loads those pics right in there, and so I can replace these wheels with these pictures. And the cool thing is we're still evaluating. I mean, these are pictures, but they all are really these numbers, right? We're still evaluating everything as numbers. So the program will still work. It'll just display these pictures. So you can put this picture in presentation mode and put it, on the thing. But you need to hook it up to your patch. So I'll let you guys do that. Have a great week, and I will see you back in class on the 14th. Okay? So your homework is in addition to last week's homework, last class's homework, right, which was to this right here, make use of at least 2 video plane objects and use at least 1 JIT slab to do and have animated parameters. So that we looked at that fisheye lens thing and made it kind of breathe in and out, right? So do some kind of creative sequence there. And then for this week, it's just to do this online lesson and to make your own slot machine and make it look cool. So it's to finish this up and make it look good. You can use my pictures if you want. You can do symbols if you want. You don't have to do the symbols. You can just leave them as numbers, but do try to make this look better. And if you want to use a different pictures, that would be great. All right, have fun, guys.